So welcome everybody. It's always a great pleasure to be here to speak about my favorite topic, which is the brain. And I really enjoy to share my journey with you. And I think what I've found out so far is that as I'm every month doing a topic, but I think I'm learning the most. So it's really such a deep well of information the time that we live in. And later on I'm going to introduce you to our special guest as well, which is in the corner here, but I'll go into detail. I've got a special surprise for you as well, for everybody that is here. And but I want to start with a very interesting topic. I've named it Without Exception. So this is probably a topic I think that I was probably the weakest in, if I think of all the topics I've covered so far. I usually thought I could sleep well, I'm eating reasonably healthy, etc., etc. But this topic is actually a vast topic. It's not an easy topic to just jump into. So I wanted to really, as we go into, don't feel overwhelmed as we get into this topic, because there's actually 1,000 things that we theoretically should look at and change. But let's take one step at a time as we go along. So this is basically part 4 of a 12-month series that I hope to do. And the previous ones are available. You can just go to YouTube, Optimum Brain Health, Chris Alabia, and this is Chris Alabia, onto his site, and you'll find all the previous ones that we've started. So we've discussed basic introduction, we've discussed the priority of sleep, the concept of living water, brain healthy exercises. So we're really starting to jump into what it takes to have a healthy brain. So we're now approaching sort of the next topic, which also could be called how to survive in the modern world that we have created. So we've got a lot of changes. So what has changed? So if we look at about 100 or 200 years back, most people died from infections, maybe wars, or something like that. And I think we've been reasonably successful in treating some of the acute problems that we face. But we haven't been very successful with all the degenerative diseases that we are entering into. So if you think an example, Alzheimer's dementia is becoming one of the leading causes in the UK of death, even above heart. So it's really and the third leading cause in America, as an example, just below heart. So if we look at the change, the shift, so there's something happening in our environment that is causing things to change. Some people might say we're living longer, perhaps, in a sense, but I think it's much more complicated than that. So we can see what has all changed. In the old days, people had just a short portion of light in their life. Then TV came, all night light came, your phones came. You think of all the other toxins, from mercury fillings, to medications that people use, all the things in the air all the pollution that we have. So there's been a drastic change and a shift in our life. And I think that has not been without an impact to our lives. So the question is, have we become so accustomed to our environment that we don't take note of it, And I think I have, if I look at all these things, how many things I just say, that's normal, a little bit of mold there, it's okay, and I've got mercury fillings, that's okay, I've got myself, and that's okay, and I think in a sense I've become very accustomed. I've got non-stick pots, that's okay, So I think in a sense we've accepted a lot of things which I'll discuss has become problematic. So on the positive side, we're better with dealing with acute illnesses, but on the negative side, we are not very good at treating Alzheimer's dementia or other degenerative diseases so far. So I always like to start on a positive note in terms of saying, do you really enjoy your brain? That's a question to ask. Do you really enjoy the sweetness of how your brain thinks, reacts to the environment, and the energy that can come from out of a healthy brain? So that's always my first prize, is to enjoy the positive side of a brain. But in the same breath, we have to look at the other side of it, and that is what Dr. Heyman said is the broken brain epidemic. So as we spoke last time, if you become 85 plus, then the chances of having Alzheimer's dementia goes between 30 to 50%, which is large. It's massively large. You think 9% of people are diagnosed, or kids are diagnosed with ADHD. If you think about that, you think how many people are on antidepressants, depression, anxiety disorders. If you put the whole together, if you think how autism has jumped to 1 in 166. So there's a question, why is this shift in a broken brain sort of epidemic, but we don't really speak about it, and that's why I really want us to have a look at that. So Bill Gates, I'm sure you guys know this special guy. So at 62, he's decided to really jump in all out for brain health. Good news, isn't it? So he's donated $100 million for research. How many rands of it. So it's a lot of, a lot of rands in a sense. And in his mind, he's now waking up at 62 in a sense, saying, wow, there can be something like Alzheimer's. I might have all the money in the world, but what about my brain? Which is good, but 62 is probably, it's not late, but I'm saying it's probably good if you can start in the womb, or even before you fall pregnant. It's probably better to start there. But we all start somewhere, isn't it? I mean, I'm 51 now, only a little bit 51. and you have to start somewhere with things. But in a sense, he started at 62. And the question is, he's investing now some of his money into his brain and brain health. But the question is, are you investing into it? I mean, whose job is it? Is it a doctor? Whose job is it to look after your brain? Do you only come to a doctor when you've got headaches or stroke or problems, or do you really look after your brain? So that's a question to ask yourself. Bill Gates obviously is now happy. $100 million investment, I think, is a good idea. So he's the same points that we spoke about, he included in his dissertation why he donated $100 million. So again, 50% chance, as we said, in the top 10 causes of death, but no meaningful treatment so far from a medical side. Massive emotional toll, and also just in America alone, $259 billion spent on looking and caring for people with Alzheimer's dementia, besides all the other aspects that goes with it. So the next hour we're going to look at a couple of thoughts, and it's maybe a new idea when you look at Alzheimer's. Often people just speak of Alzheimer's, perhaps, but I'm going to introduce you to type 1, type 2, 1.5, and type 3 Alzheimer's. I'm going to later on show you why it's important to understand the difference in this. It's not just a technical term that some wise people have to know, but it's a thing that everybody of us, in a sense, have to step into. So we're going to speak a bit about the toxic exposure and steps to reduce the toxic load. And then some of our holistic medicine practitioners will speak a little bit about some of the practical systems and detox systems and how can one practically look after your body in a sort of more holistic way. And so basically we need to shift our mindset. So most of us, first of all, have to relax. We've got a system in us that can protect us, which is good. But there's a tipping point where this system cannot work well enough. Now, there's also genetic studies coming out that in certain cases people are genetically much, much more prone for the expression of disease. And we'll come to toxic mold as an example, but 25% of people have got a super response to mold. And 2% of 100 have got a super response to mold as an example, which other people might not have. So we are seeing that in a sense where your genetic risk is the gun, but how you live and what you are in contact with is the finger that actually pulls the trigger. So that's where we are in our mindset today. So where do we start? In a sense, we're going to focus on limiting your exposure, strengthening your defenses and detox systems, and increasing your mitochondrial health. And then really a holistic medicine practitioner, functional medicine practitioners to visit. And we're going to speak a little bit about that in more detail. Why I think it's important, like as you would go maybe to your gynae or your dentist, to really make appointments from time to time to see somebody with holistic medicine field. I'll speak a little bit about that. And part of our journey is we're integrating our knowledge. So I'm slightly this side, holistic slightly that side, but we're trying to get a better service by integrating what we are seeing in our approach, which we'll speak about over time. So I'm going to go a little bit into Dr. Dale Bredeson's book, Recode, and his program. So I'm not selling his books, but it's a very good book to get for somebody for Christmas, perhaps, if you're thinking of Christmas presents. So he basically identified, he looked at 150 risk factors, because what's our problem with Alzheimer's dementia is that on one side, if you look at the whole population, if we help them to get 85 and plus by looking after blood pressures and cholesterols and all those sort of things, 50%, up to 50% will develop a degenerative brain illness. That's sort of quite a shocking statistic. So he went into saying, what does it take to change? Because we've spent billions and trillions of dollars on pills to try and turn things around. And the last medication that came out was in 2003. That was the last time that we've had any Alzheimer's medication come out. And about 96 to 99% of all the drugs fail. About probably 400 that they've tried. Everyone can be up to $1 billion to present to go through fail. And the reason was that the initial hypothesis was that there's a producing of a sticky substance called beta amyloid in the brain, and that's causing Alzheimer's. So they tried a lot of focus how to reduce this substance and how to fight against this substance from many different angles, but they failed. In some cases, they even worsened patients by actually reducing the burden, if one can put it this way. So what he found out is that there's many factors actually attacking the brain, and then the brain responds to try to protect the brain by secreting amyloid. Does it make sense? So the brain under attack then tries to defend itself by secreting, if you can put such a word, amyloid into the brain. Now, you've got different factors that attack the brain. One is inflammation, which we'll spend at some other time more in detail. The other one is parts of what we call supporting parts of the brain, which might be testosterone, your thyroid might be one of the best growth factors for the brain, so all that group. But the third group, which we're going to speak about today, is your body's contact with toxins. And that is causing your brain then to respond in such a way. And where do we find sort of some proof of that? We often see young ladies in their 50s or 55s presenting with Alzheimer's, which is sort of, wow, that's quite young. And what has happened, they entered menopause, and their bones have released some of the toxins, like mercury, as an example, into their system. So when they've got a high stress response, and with that, when there's been a sort of a response to their body, and they present with sort of quite a quick onset of multi-brain degeneration, if I can put it this way. So it's interesting thinking for us. It would be nice to think of type 3, but that's very much in our hands how we live. And that's what I want to speak about today. So basically the three different attacks, as we said, is the inflammation part, the shortage of brain supporting molecules, and the third one is protecting the brain from specific toxins. And there's two big groups that I'll speak about. The one is biological toxins, which is from a mold to certain bacteria to viruses to a whole other group of things. And the other one is all the chemical toxins, which we'll speak about, which is mercury and lead and et cetera, as we go through things. So it's an interesting thought. Now, if we also look at the World Trade Center, now if you follow up, there was a huge amount of first responders. Now, if you go Google first responders and dementia, you'll see all the articles coming out. So a big percentage of first responders at the 9/11 Twin Tower are developing Alzheimer's and dementia. So it's a very interesting thought. Why? So initially they thought maybe it's linked to post-traumatic stress disorder or some of those things, but it's been progressive. And that's where the concept of inhalation Alzheimer's are coming from. So it's an interesting thought as we get to that. So just, you can just Google that as a by the way thing to see that there's something happening in our life that we have to think about. So as we said, type 3 Alzheimer's, which is probably maybe 10%, we don't know exactly how much or how many of our patients with Alzheimer's are secondary to toxins. So this is basically a sort of quite an important, I think, topic for all of us just to reconsider. So basically, we'll come back later to ApoE3 and ApoE4, which is genetic things that you can test. If you've got ApoE2, which is very rare, you've got a very low risk of developing Alzheimer's. If you've got ApoE3, the risk goes up a little bit. But if you've got 2 ApoE4s, your risk goes up to 50% of developing Alzheimer's in a younger age, not the 85 plus group. So it's interesting that this ApoE4 is a big link for us. So basically 15% of you guys sitting here have got an ApoE4. So if you go test yourself, you'll find, it's not necessarily always, you have to decide, do I test myself or not? But so it's interesting thought. So there's a link between this ApoE4 and the other types of Alzheimer's, but in this group, it's more the ApoE3 that is linked. Not typically in the families in this group, it's a younger group, 40s or late or early 60s, this group, often after great stress and depression, etc. is very common. And then there's a poor response to management. Whatever you do, there seems to be this sort of progression in this younger group of patients. Often if you test your blood as low zinc, that's why we'll come later to what you want test in your blood and so on. But they've often got low zinc and low triglycerides, which is one of the aspects of cholesterol testing. And it affects many parts of the brain, not just like a normal Alzheimer's would start in a certain area going to the side. And we've got multiple white matter changes in the brain. And then we use specific testing, you find there's mercury marker toxins that you can actually, if you do specific testings, find in the urine in a higher dose than what should be normally acceptable. So it's a whole different group of a way of looking at Alzheimer's. So previously somebody would come in, we'd do some memory testing and give them maybe a tablet. But now we're starting saying, have you got any toxins? And we'll say, I'll show you now what we have to look at, in a sense. So let me go through. So there's basically 5 ways that you can get poisons in. You can inhale them, you can eat them, you can absorb them through your skin. So even if you bath with in fluoridated water, you can absorb the fluoride through your skin. You can yourself produce byproducts of poison, if something happens within you. And then there's obviously the electromagnetic fields and radiation, which we can also speak a little bit about. So at least 5 ways that this toxins can get to your body. Okay. So what is basic tests? I'm not going to go into that because it becomes complicated, but there's a whole battery of tests that one should do somewhere as you do your prostate test, as you go for your mammogram, as you go for all those sort of things, which I've really tried to bring in. So one of my fights will be ultimately is to try and ultimately even to get to the medical aids and see if we can't get a battery of tests, that will sort of accept as part every 2 yearly, after 45 maybe, that's part of my ideas, but we'll come back to these things over time. So basically we don't test it well. So if I now do your mercury, I'll just do a normal urine test, but you actually need preparation, what I call chelation, and you need 6 hours of urine testing, just to look at mercury as an example. So we don't test it well yet. So those are the type of things that I'm going to speak to PAFCare and medical aids over time. So part of my drive will be to get that. So basic questions that you have to ask yourself. So if you can say, the more you say yes to these, the more you can actually tick off, I'm at risk for type 3 Alzheimer's disease, which is quite an interesting thinking. So if you've had a lot of general anesthesia, it's a risk. Dental amalgams, which is a risk. Mercury fish, so the big, strong fish, you actually have to eat bottom feeders, that. So not the big tuna. Medications, there's certain medications. Street drugs, alcohol, smoking. Oral hygiene, so there's much written about the link between your nose flora and your brain. And it makes sense because you've got 15 to 20 nerves from your brain going right into your nose. So whatever's happening here can go up, into your brain. So there's been nose flora found in the brain of Alzheimer's patients, as an example. There's been herpes, fever blister, found in patients with Alzheimer's as well. Surgical implants, problems with liver, kidneys, lung and heart, snoring, trans fats, chronic sinus problems, leaky gut, bloated feeling always, etc. Don't sweat much, and so how are you going to detox if you don't sweat much, in a sense? Constipated, how are you going to detox? If you don't go to the bathroom regularly, if you don't drink enough water and go urinating, how will you detox? So just look at those sort of 3 things important. Mold in your house, and it's a difficult one. Even as we speak, in my own house, there's no mold. So it's difficult to get away from these things, isn't it? Processed foods, tick bites, makeup, hairsprays. Anybody does hairsprays? Antiperspirants, etc. So there's a lot of things that we can say yes to that. And that's why it's quite a scary topic. Because one thing to say, yes, I'm going to exercise. Yes, I'm going to still do that. It's one thing to say, I've got 50 things around me that want to get in me and maybe cause some reaction, So that's a different thing to say. So I'm just going to sort of look quickly at some of the concepts of how you can try to get less burden in of all these things. So I'm just going to give a quick overview. Every one of them can keep you busy for an hour, which we don't have time. So I can't give all the facts and the things, we can maybe at some stage look at the facts if you want to. So the first thing is air pollution, as we said, and the first responders, as we said, increased dementia rates. So that's something that one can look practically with. I saw at least 10 articles, just on this topic. There's 9 million premature deaths according to the World Health Organization and the Lancet in 2016 because of air pollution-related diseases. Interesting, 9 million worldwide. Then the whole thing of fine particles that are entering inside you. Just take an example, if you work with printers, laser printers. What are those fine particles? You don't consider laser printers as an example, and we'll get into some of those extra things. Then air pollution has got all these risks, from lung disease, irritable bowel disease, cognitive decline, etc. There's many ways how they do that. And as we said, 92%, according to the World Health Organization, of people's the air that you breathe is abnormal. Now, which one do you think is worse, in your house or outside your house? Air pollution? Inside. So if you don't think about that, because you're spraying your sprays inside, and you've got all the dogs and all the paints inside, you've got so many things that you've got inside. So you're inside your house, It's much more toxic, 2 to 5 times more toxic than outside your house. So some are still good to open your windows, but just get the idea of it as you go through. So in a sense, what can you do regarding this? You can obviously try and support gas, wind, tidal, electricity, all those sort of things in whatever way you can, but it's a very slow process. I mean, you can imagine our country suddenly stopping coal and doing all the rest. It's unlikely. But you can obviously in some way try to lobby for things that are more safe. But it's a very long process. You can increase your body's protective system. I haven't gone into detail, but a lot of people speak of broccoli and omega-3, and there's many other types of vitamins and processes that one can look at that help your body to naturally deal with some of these things. And then your home, you can see there's people that really go all the way with special called HEPA air filters. I'm not sure exactly how you get it, but they sort of filter small particles and change them to innate particles. House plants, certain things like I nearly said poison ivy, but it's other ivy, some British ivy or something like that you can put in your room that actually absorbs toxins. So you can just put in NASA air plants, and if you put in NASA plants, they'll give you like 10 top plants to put in your room. Open windows, if you especially don't stay next to too much funny stuff. Vacuum often, and aerosol sprays are really toxic, if you look at that. We'll go into that as well. So every time you spray, in the bathroom, your Glade, and if you look at later on fragrances is a loophole for the industry. So 3,000 chemicals are labeled under fragrances. And some of those, like Glade fragrances, got in one of them 60 chemicals to give you a certain fragrance. So you put those 60 chemicals under fragrance. So it's important to sort of consider these things. What do you spray on your hair, in your house, in the bathroom, on yourself? So all those things, where do they go? Now, obviously, in-house smoking or fires, organic household cleaners, furniture chemicals. If you put those chemicals that keep your benches longer, not dirty. For pregnant women, there's studies you can look at the IQ of children. That come out if you sit on those sort of chemical aspects. Some people, this is interesting one, leave your shoes outside. I'm not there yet, because you bring all the outside stuff. But I'm still taking my shoes in the house. Avoid powders, old food powders, where do they go? If you shaka all those food powders, store solvents outside the house. There's a whole group of things that we are really bad, I'm bad at it. If I just think of all the sprays and the stuff in the Glade and the, whatever, so it's something that I'm slowly trying to shift and look at in my own life. Obviously choose where to stay, So again, as we said, type 3 Alzheimer's is really the prototype of what we are looking at. Now, Dr. Bredesen has looked at the thought of the SIRS, which we'll speak a little bit about later, but that's a chronic inflammatory reactive syndrome. So when your body comes into contact with, say, mold, then your body has got a slow inflammatory reaction. Now, if you, some of the 75% of people, you'll get over it. You'll get your mold contact and feel a bit ill, and you'll fight it, and you'll feel, I'm tired for 2-3 months. Why am I so tired? This flu is taking a long way to get over me, and maybe over it. But if you're part of it, 25%, you've got this chronic sinusitis, maybe, or chronic just, never feeling really well again. And you can't put your finger on it. Tired, you get diagnosed maybe fibromyalgia, maybe. That is just it, or maybe low iron, or your blood pressure is a bit low, but you can't really put your finger on it. So there's much written about this condition, chronic inflammatory response syndrome to the environment. So it's something that one has to really know about. It's something that I think as mainstream doctors I don't know so much about. I think we're still exploring this avenue, so it's still a new thought, but it's really getting more and more evidence-based, if I can put it this way. But Dr. Bredesen, which is one of my mentors, digital mentors, says that type 3 Alzheimer's is a subtype of this chronic inflammatory type of response. So that's why how you live is important. So we don't think that Alzheimer's is one single thing. We think that your house or your brain is like a roof with at least 36 holes where things can really rain through to injure your brain. But if you don't look at all these aspects, if you don't look at your mold in your house, if you don't look at the toxins that surround you, then that's an added weight that tips the point for your brain to become reactionary to produce amyloid. So it's good to know what you should eat, but can you understand how important this would be as part of a bigger picture of things? So basically 25% of, as we said, are predisposed to severe illness. very complex symptoms. You can watch a documentary called Moldy, you know, if you want to, 30 minutes. Moldy is a good name. And then there's lots written about this type of products on crops and paints to fight against molds, but they've actually created super molds. You know, like you would have antibiotic resistance. You've got mold resistance because of what we've done. Now it's also important to know that a lot of people, once your house is flooded, that's where a lot of illnesses are brewing. You know, you sort of maybe go out and here's a guy come back and gets everything ready, but now your house has got mold, you know. And so it's not good enough just to go out and fix everything. You have to take everything there, either throw it away, you know, or super clean it, because whatever you've had there is got the mold spores in, you know. So it's quite a hectic aspect, from your books to everything like that, you know. So it's quite a hectic bedding, furniture, so it can be very complicated. So who will do it? Will you do it? Will you throw away your stuff? You know? And so therefore, if you really got part of this 25%, that's what you have to do, you know, if you've got this mold problem. So basically, careful history of mold, as we said. There's some tests that one can do and some extra things. I'm not going to go into that, but there are specific tests that you can do for mold, specific eye tests, urine tests, etc., genetic testing, which if you are interested, we can discuss, you know, afterwards or so. So again, it's a multi-system disease: fatigue, migraines, muscle cramps, heart-driven problems, neurological problems, brain fog. You can see how non-specific it can be. A lot of people say, wow, this is what I've got, you know. It's very non-specific, so it's very difficult to come to this point where you can see that my body is chronically inflamed because of reacting against something. Now, in children, they found that amygdala, which is your fear center, is very much affected by this type of thing. And sometimes you get kids that are completely out of control. Suddenly, kids that are full of rage, and they end up in the psychiatry clinics and so on. So there's been found some cases where it's really this surge, this chronic inflammation, but it's injured that part. And you can imagine how long it takes for a penny to drop. You know, not an easy penny to drop in that area. So again, we need to have a comprehensive approach. You know, a new house, new furniture, clothes, difficult, you know. You can hire professional mold remediators, etc. So there are in Cape Town, I actually Googled it. You know, there are people that do house visits that check out your whole house for you and can do it for you. So I'm sure, I'm probably going to contact them and say, you know, what can we do? And then sort of careful for wheat, rye, peanuts, corn, barley, sugar, hard cheeses, and all those we did. You know, leaky gut and fibromyalgia. All those, this is one of the diets. There's always to get away from all these things. I remember that still from the olden days. So good resources, probably good. This guy is probably the best resource, shoemaker. So you can remember him from the fast, you know, guy. So it's maybe good to sort of study it for yourself a bit, because it's a massive topic. You know, it's really a large, comprehensive topic, but it's very important in the times that we live in. You can even see in the Bible times they were very strict if they found mold. Did you ever read that passage in Leviticus? So if you saw mold on the wall, and you'd think it doesn't happen in deserts, but it's super molds in deserts. When you sort of did something to it and you go out and come back, if it's still there, you break out the wall. And if it still goes on, you break down the whole house. You know, so it's interesting that even in biblical times when it was about mold, the Israelites, that's exactly what they did, you know. And afterwards you could lose your whole house, you know, so it's interesting. So again, this for rhinosinus, microbiome. So what we found is that we coexist with organisms. So in your gut, you've got 2 pound at least organisms that you coexist with, but everywhere else, in your mouth has got a specific organisms, in your upper nose system, but even your eyes and on your skin. So that's one of the things in favour of not bathing every day. You know, that's one of the important things. Not to bath every day, although I still can't get past that one, because you're actually destroying all your skin flora and all the oils on it, etc. But theoretically, you should not be such a zealous bather. You know, my youth, I did twice a day, you know, but we won't go into that, you know. That one shouldn't. So even mouthwash, you know, it's not good, because you're killing all the good flora, you know, if you think about it, you know. And all the other things that you do your flora. So the flora is so important. So part of thinking of your brain, you have to think of your gut flora. But even gut up all the way right here to your nose up, because your nose is the most important one, even more important than your gut, you know, because it's actually by your brain. You know, so if you think of that, so there's lots written, there's people doing this one. I don't know, it's fermented cabbage in the Korean restaurants that they are saying, so it's got a special smell that people like. but they say nonetheless for top guys, the top flora, that seems to be the guy to go. You know, you can obviously use kombucha and kefir for low down, but this, the bad guy one you put here, because you can actually smell it going into your brain. You know, so that's a good one. So just, if you think of it, how broad we have to think, we're coexisting with bad guys and good guys, you know, inside of our system. You know, so we have to sort of promote the good guys and chase out the bad guys.
What about blue cheese?
Yeah, people speak a little bit about that as well. I think when I read up on this topic is that they sort of ask a question. I'm not sure the topic is out, but for anything I probably wouldn't go for blue cheese, you know, but I can't say. I like blue cheese. So I've just really rushed through this big topic of air things. We don't have time to really go into depth, but it's really important for everyone to read up on it. As I said, put in CIRS, C-I-R-S, put in toxic mold, put in Dr. Greenekamp type 3 Alzheimer's, put in and read up, because this is a massive topic to start off with. So cell phones, any concerns about cell phones? Do you like cell phones? We all do, and I think 95% is addicted to cell phones, so that's why we don't easily get off. But is it safe, you know? World Health Organization, what do they say? They've done some studies and maybe here and there and all that. What does Lloyd's of London say? Do you know Lloyd's of London? If you've got any illness related to this, they're not going to pay for it. That's what they say. So what does that mean? They know something, in a sense. So why won't they do that? So 5G is also coming out, so you have to know a bit more about 5G. Will get you everywhere, you know, in a sense. But the idea is that the first thing to start with is cell-phone addiction. Why? Because it stimulates your dopamine release, as we said. You become a dopamine junkie. You can't help it. You know, you see your cell phone before, you just start scrolling, and like 40 minutes later, you're still scrolling Facebook. You know, after all, you're looking at Pinterest recipes. You know, and I'm looking at. It's hard to take whatever I've ever made, you know. I'm just reading, oh, look at this nice recipe and sending recipes to my daughter, you know. So we really, this dopamine circuit is something that we have to look at. Do we pay a price if we help it? Excite the dopamine circuit? Is there any price to pay for our brain? You know? So that's one thing, but you can't go do all this before you don't deal with this, isn't it? I mean, so we've taken a 7 days break from your phone. Have you done that? Can you think of leaving your phone for 7 days? Difficult, but that's what we have to do sometimes, just to see how addicted we are. The blue light, as we said, is extremely toxic upon your eyes, you know, in terms of degenerating your eyesight itself, but also awakening the whole negative pathway of keeping you awake because of your melatonin that drops. So if you watch an hour before you go to sleep, within that period of time, TV and your Facebook and email, the melatonin is dropped in the ground. You know, what does melatonin do? Besides making you sleep, what does it do? It's an antioxidant for the brain. You know, so we can go on and on about this effect of blue light. So we've now put blue lights outside our windows, you know, and everywhere you go there's this light, you know, so your whole brain is really flooded by this, while your brain should be in pitch darkness and sunlight of 30,000 to 100,000 lux. That's what you should be functioning in. But how much of us get sun? You know, for an hour a day or 2 hours, we don't get that, you know, but we get all this artificial light all the time. So there's much to write about that. I can't go into detail into that, but there's lots written about the mitochondria and light. Your HB being a conductor in a sense, bringing the energy of the light all the way to your mitochondria. So there's much written about this topic. And if you don't get enough good sunlight and only bad sunlight. So why do you think you feel so bad if you fly? You know, what should you do? Where you should get blue light filtered glasses when you fly, and also put everything under cover, because your skin can also pick up sunlight and drop your melatonin. You know, so if you sleep with one small light on, you know, it can also drop your melatonin. My wife just gave me a lovely present. What did you give me, my wife?
Salt lamp.
Himalayan salt lamp for my birthday on Monday. So I've got a Himalayan salt lamp. You know, so that's excellent. So I'm going forward slowly, but slowly. Then obviously the whole thing of radio frequency Wi-Fi, you can put an app on your phone that can actually measure how much, you know, radio frequency you get, and it should be under 2. And if you leave your data on, it goes to 5 and back, 5 and back. You know, so if you don't use your data, put your data off. We'll come to that. Neck and nerve injuries, that I see a lot. People sitting down like that after a whoosh, you know, and the nerves, all the nerves and so on. So you get a lot of injuries from that. Car accidents, you know, the rest. You know, we're not going to go into that. Depression and anxiety because of blue light and many other factors because of that. And ultimately the effect on the mitochondria. We've spoken last time on mitochondria. 10% of your body weight is mitochondria. And 90% of all of your energy comes from mitochondria. So mitochondria failure to fry is behind a lot of our chronic illnesses. So what can you do? Blue light filter. You can, 1 hour before you go to bed, my alarm goes off. My wife can testify, often in movies my alarm goes off 9 o'clock. So 9 o'clock my alarm goes off and I put everything off. Deal with your phone addiction. Hold the phone away from your head, so if I answer it, at the very least, I'll put my fingers like this, but it's not directly on it. It's probably better to have some other piece of equipment. Switch your data off if you don't use it, and before you go to bed, just switch your Wi-Fi off before going to bed. I'm going to make a lobby for this hospital as well, so at night the Wi-Fi must be off, because it's disturbed sleep. So if you have a lot of sick patients, why do you want Wi-Fi all night? So before bed, sleep away from your head, your phone, because your bed amplifies the signal, the ion inside of it. So your phone must be really outside. That way, don't keep your phone on your body, you know that. That's very important. Don't phone in the car because it's like a microwave inside. We all do that, I'm sure. We shouldn't. So this is some practical things just to decrease some of the toxicity just from your radiation part. Any problems with plastics? Do you guys use plastics? So this is we're really guilty. I mean, I can just speak for myself. We're really surrounded by these things. So as plastic ages, it's not innate. The heat can release microscopic amounts of things like BPA that's inside plastic. I think baby bottles. Is it good to have a plastic baby bottle? I mean, I did. All my 4 kids. Sorry about it. So is it good to have plastic baby bottles? Is it good to plastic water bottles, shower curtains, raincoats, toys, canned foods, plastic wraps, personal care products, salad dressings, cooking oils, soda bottles, takeaway containers? You can see the list can go on and on and on, but we're really just surrounded by this plastic, In a sense, the BPA can do all this inside, structural brain damage, mimic hormones, puberty that can be earlier, in our girls, bed learning, weight gain, immune system changes, etc. So a lot of things just from plastic that we don't even know about. So what do? I take my lid off if I drink steaming hot coffee. That's easy, yeah? So I don't take any lids because you put steaming hot coffee through plastic, cheap plastic. You get, every day you get your dose of BPA in. Don't use straws, plastic shopping bags. Start to sort of get rid of, the ocean is full of straws and shopping bags. Try to get, and all the fish you are eating now are eating plastic. So previously now you have to look at mercury and plastic, Don't use plastic cups, utensils, food containers, avoid plastic toys, cling wrap, and especially this one. The Woolworths, have you done that before? Woolworths, quick, in the oven, stuff, Don't do that, it's lots of toxic plastic that you get in. This is a difficult one. I'm not sure who's going to listen. I'm not sure, huh? So, but nonetheless, powers that be say this is not so good. And shower, and plastics got, bottles got numbers underneath. So this is sort of a quick, I have to go quick as you can see because our time is sort of running out and I want to give our ladies some more time as well. Personal hygiene. You watch a movie, Moldy, and then afterwards stink. So this guy sort of had a sort of a thing about fragrances. It's St. John's fresh citrus blossom scented blade plugins, oil refills at 60 chemical components. You couldn't get it out of him. They don't write it up. They just put in fragrance. And you really push these guys till they confess there's 60 chemicals for the fragrance, And so you're thinking, oh, what's its name? It's fresh citrus blossom. So you're getting some fresh citrus blossom as your toilet is sort of graying and you're sort of happy, but you're getting in 60 chemicals, every day of your life, So he went into really studying fragrances, and there's 3,000 chemicals listed, I think, in France, probably not elsewhere, but in France under fragrance. So that's how they can find loopholes without writing what you actually get. So whatever you get, you can maybe see 6 things and fragrance, but you can know fragrance can have 60 stuff, that's in it. So a lot of dangerous things, mothballs, we have mothballs, pesticides, pressed wood, chemicals in carpets, laser printer chemicals, lead paint, air fresheners, baby bottles, flame retardants, cosmetic, hairspray, shampoos. So all these things, you can read what's on your deodorants. It's got aluminium in it, is that good? You can look at all the other stuff. Do you know? So the big thing is to look at what you're taking and make sure that you're right with whatever's on it. That's the bottom line. You must make sure, is this okay for me to get in? So if you use aluminium for 50 years, is it right to use aluminium for 50 years or not? So you have to ask this. You can see how much load they can get in a short while. Household chemicals, Europe is banned 1,300 chemicals, America is banned 11. So that's interesting. So Europe is also banned fluoride in water, so we can see, there's some bias in a sense. So average person uses, women, I'm not sure if South African women do that, uses 12 personal care products and or cosmetics a day, containing up to 168 different chemicals. I'm not sure if one can extrapolate it here or not, but you know how much you use, so important to have a look at that. You know the Silent Spring work group? The Silent Spring was a lady that did was a DDT, that bad guy poison. And in 1962, she started seeing that people died from DDT, in that way. And she wrote a book, The Silent Spring. And 10 years later, they banned DDT. Everybody happy? No, we just replaced it with all the other stuff. But they banned it at least 10 years after she wrote, and there's a big lobby for it. So Silent Spring work group has obviously come from that. So they tell you what not to use. You can go into their site, all the different things that we often use. Toothpastes. I mean, I have to move away from our favorite Colgate, fluoride type of things and so on. It's difficult, eh? We're so used to all these things. I mean, who uses natural toothpaste? One should. You guys do. Yeah, that's what you're going to and I've tried once an underarm one, but it didn't work well. So I've booted it. But what we have to sit down and say, wow, help us guys, which ones work well, and we have to sort of coexist because it's toxic. It's not healthy for us. Deodorants, all these sort of things. So you can look at this group. You can also look at the natural savvy challenges. Do you like challenges? Women sometimes do. You can look at Scary 7 challenge, where for a period of time you don't use any of this. Non-GMO challenge, you don't use any of that. Gluten-free challenge and omega-free, take more of that challenge, So they've got challenges that you belong to the group and they follow you up and are you okay and check, are you doing it, support group. So it's interesting just to think about all these things. So again, what can we do? Take products with fewer ingredients. So just don't take things that's got 100,000 stuff on. Use stuff that you're familiar with. Buy more organic products. Use glass containers, no plastic, clean wrap, foil. Foil is a big one. Replace non-stick pots. I try to throw out all our pots. My wife took them all back again, but so I have them all in a little group there, but she did say we're going to try to get glass pots. We just have to find them somewhere, but that is our aim, to sort of look at these things. Filter water, but remember your bath water as well, or your shower, so you have to get a thing that filters out the stuff. Earth-friendly stuff, vacuum cleaner with HEPA filter. Don't buy furniture, mattresses with chemicals on. Avoid water-resistant clothing. Difficult, we've got all our little things for the rain and all that, Natural cleaning products, how much funny stuff is in our zincs, underneath our zincs. Organic brands, artificial fresheners, etc. Use fragrance-free products. Replace your shower curtains, etc. So I'm really finished with my part. But can you see how much it can be overwhelming? I mean, you can just say, wow, this is just too much.
I want to go.
You see? I'll say for you. So I'm really finished now, but pesticides, 3.5 billion kilograms of pesticides yearly on the crops. That's a massive amount, You can watch another video from DDT to glyphosate. So you've got 3 videos so far to watch. And this is the Silent Spring book. So you can also look at this National Geographic. So they say it's junior strength nerve agents because they have the same mechanism action as nerve gases like serum. Some of those topics. So it's really heavy. We're 99% certain. Okay, 1% not, but it can alter things like that. In your life. Some of the guys. So where are they? On your fruit. On your veggies, around your house, at your schools, in the parks, on the sport grounds, So what should you do? You should ask your school, do you spray around the school? How many of us have asked that? I don't think I've asked that, but we should ask that. You have to ask the sport fields, is it sprayed? With what? What do you spray around your own house? What do you spray wherever? At farms you go to, if you go to stone farms, you choose a time where they spray the crops. Is it a good time to go on vacation on a farmhouse, So you have to really consider these things. You can do some urine testing of glyphosate has shot up 1,200% in America from 1993 to 2016 in tests. So it's really getting into people. Long-term infertility, birth defects, endocrine disruptions, neurological disorders, cancers, all related to that. How to get rid of it from fruit. Now, it's not as easy as splashing it. I'm a splasher. Are you a splasher? Splashing doesn't do the trick. There's many thoughts, but one of them is baking soda. I don't know who does it, but 2 cups of water, 8 minutes. They took apples, because why is apples are bad, guys? Because they put wax on it. And your apple is probably a year old. So it's stored in all your, they keep it in big places, that your apples, they don't just come from the trees, it's a year old. And they've got a year old pesticides on the year old polish they've got, So it's difficult to get it off. So it takes 8 to 15 minutes of soaking to get it off an apple. Okay, so how many apples have you eaten, Organic is only 30% lower. So it doesn't mean if you eat organic, it's got nothing on it. It's just less, okay, in a sense. So what are the bad guys? They call the dirty dozen. Apples, peaches, all these guys. These are the bad guys that's got most on, okay? Good guys, arrows, I like that. Pineapple, sweet peas, so you can have more of us. They've got less chance of having that, So don't spray insecticides and poisons around your house. Yeah, it's our time to get the ants. Let's kill the ants. Let's kill the cockroaches. Let's kill the mosquitoes. Let's spray the stuff in our rooms, Ask your school parks, playing fields, if they spray, and petition them not to do that. Wash your vegetables, difficult one. Careful for dirty dozen. But especially if you're pregnant and in young brains. I think you can still decide you're older, I'm not into that. But if you've got little ones or you're pregnant, you have to be super duper careful for this. Heavy metals, you can see all the bad guys here. So, 2004 study in newborns, 287 toxins could be found in that group they did. From stick cookware to pesticides and fire retardants could be isolated in that group of newborns, as an average, which is scary. So consider throwing your cookware away. These guys are non-stick ones. My wife, consider. Minimize this around foods because you don't know what they cook in, as an example. Cosmetics with aluminium bases, deodorants with aluminium bases. Vaccines, that's a difficult one, because how many of us have got vaccines with mercury in? I think I have. Fluoride-free toothpaste, don't use aluminium foil around your nice snook, try to use something else in that way. So it's an emotional topic, isn't it? The mercury films. I think I'm now ready to take the next step, but I won't push it on somebody else. You have to do your own studies. So I'm not going to tell you just take out all the things. But if you consider doing that, you can't just take it out. You know that. You'll become super, super, super toxic if you just take it out. So you have to go a month before the time at least to our holistic ladies and go on a detox. Then you have to have a super special guy that gives you separate oxygen, that you can breathe separate air, and super thick gloves and super thick tubes to shh everything out, and super guy, or girl taking it out. And then afterwards you have to detox as well. So it's not just taking out your things, So I'm there, I think. So my next present would be, you can say.
After 10 years, we get a feeling it's already gone into your brain.
It's probably starting to, but it will be progressively because as you buy,
he said by 10 years it's gone. It's in you already. You have to take your feelings out.
And I think it'll help to take the origin away because part of your detoxing you can't do when you've still got the origin in you. So, and I think then you have to be on the detox, and there's certain things you shouldn't do. Eat an example would be don't get extra stuff in for your fish, but it is so. I think the longer you've got it in, the more by the time your bone is degenerated, but especially before your bone really starts to degenerate, to release it more. So by the time your teeth are degenerating, it is releasing it. But I still think I'm there. So that's my next step. But again, don't just jump and do it. You have to study it yourself. You have to look for the evidence yourself. I can't do it in a talk like this. And don't just do it. Consider it, in a sense. Then there's the whole thing of HRT and bone health, etc. So a lot of people, as we go into the menopause, the bone releases these toxins. So it's an interesting thinking around the menopause, why there's suddenly a shift in ladies, sometimes a cognitive decline because of the release of toxins. So probably good to have a look at that. My last talk, cooking. Who cooks? I think all of us. So again, what do you cook with? So don't cook with olive oil, although one would think it's the better one. But because its cooking point is not right, you'll still get toxic effects. So throw it over your salads. It's good to get in. But it's not so healthy. Obviously don't use canola oils and all those sort of things. Very toxic. All this is not good for you. So probably the only one is probably coconut oil for high cooking. But you probably should think if you want a high cook. But that's a separate talk. But any right type of thing is probably coconut oil is the safest probably to use. Microwave cooking, do you use microwaves? No. So it's an interesting thought. Again, I don't want to bring massive controversial things to your heart, but you have to consider these things, you know. So it is written about, you know, obviously plastic and paper inside of it, so that's a given. Don't put plastic and paper in your microwave. It does destroy nutrients, you don't have to worry, it's proven, that's proven. It can alter your food structures, can give uneven heating the way you think it wouldn't. It can affect voltage, gated calcium channels in your brain, you know, in your body as well. So there's enough to think, don't do it. But again, I'm not here to be controversial and say do all these things, but you have to consider it yourself. So if you want to go on, which is naughty, but you can, use only glass, so no plastics and papers or whatever it has to be. Don't let children or pregnant women use it. Okay, so at least don't do that. Minimize it to special situations. Don't use every single time for your coffee or your pop or your whatever. Don't use it as a sort of chronic thing. No baby foods or baby bottles. Keep a good distance from a microwave. And don't use microwaves if you've got a heart-rhythm problems, depression, anxiety, autism or ADHD. It seems to have some extra effect on that subgroup of people in a sense. But again, consider yourself. Nearly finished. The danger of high temperature cooking. So we shouldn't cook high. I'm not going to give you all these funny names. I struggle to pronounce it myself. But these are the things that can be linked. So blackened food, as an example, is not good for you. You know, charring of meat is not good. Excessive smoke is not good. You know, so there's a lot of inflammation, etc., that can be formed by these sort of things. Even pasteurized milk, in a sense, is not so ideal. So just to honor my digital mentors, I've used extensively from Mercola, Hyman, Bredesen, Perlmutter in my talks. I do study them as so they're sort of my mentors. Everybody's got some mentors, and mentors may have good points and less good points. But these are the guys that taught me a lot. So I really want to just lift them up. So a very large topic, guys. It's really, really, really a large topic. So I've tried to swish just quickly through it, but I want to touch your hearts, to consider it for yourself, you know, this topic. So I just want to introduce our special guests here. I'm going to put you in there. So it's Amina, Blacksea, and all the rest of the team that you can maybe introduce, but I'm going to put this in place.
Hi guys. Alright, so I'm Anina Conradi, that's my colleagues back there, Tanya Minnar, Sanet Hubert and Blacksea Gur. Blacksea
Can you maybe just speak in
speak in the mic. Okay, so shall I reintroduce or did you hear that? Okay, cool. While we wait for the presentation to come in, I just wanted to say that grapeseed oil is the cooking oil. Yeah, grapeseed oil. It's also cold pressed, just like the olive oil. So it can sustain huge heats. So if you want to use any oil for heating and cooking, then that would definitely be the oil that we would need. So there was a lot of things as he was talking. I said, yes, but that detracts from what we prepared for you for today. So we're specifically going to talk about the gut health and also the toxins and the detoxification process. So we are holistic healthcare practitioners. Now I know it's a mouthful. It's the it is we work in
detox final draft.
That's it. That's it. Okay, now I need this little bitty. So I need glasses with and without glasses. So forgive me if I peek over my glasses, it's because I need bifocals and I haven't gotten to around today. Okay, so we work in the wellness paradigm on this side. So mostly with people, there is certain signs that you start experiencing in your body, and that reaches into symptoms, and that finally then end up into some form of an illness. And really what most people think is that the neutral point is what is healthy. And it's really very far from the truth, because optimal health sits here. And what we as healthcare practitioners do is we create awareness, we provide education, and we follow the growth with the person so that they can actually learn in order to get their nutrition sorted out, to understand what their bodies need, to understand what is doing them good and what is doing them harm. So a lot of what we talked about today already is about that burden that we carry. So we also screen for anomalies in terms of what the body systems are and how toxic are they, or how burdened are they, and how much work that we still need to do. So we provide programs, we provide nutritional programs that you can follow. We help with supplementation, we help with filling in the gaps, if you want to call it that. But ultimately, it is the responsibility of each person to take their healthcare into their own hands. So we're the catalyst, but if you're not going to do the responsible thing and say, okay, I am going to make these changes, chances are that your whole process is not going to work. So if it's easy to run and get the headache tablet because my head is sore, without thinking what caused the headache in the first place, did I look at what food did I eat? What was I drinking? What was I exposed to? Instead of grabbing the pill, why don't you just drink some more water so we can start flushing and get the stuff out of our system? So that is very important that we then understand why is our gut actually the second brain. It is about the gut-brain axis. So we receive the energy from the food, water, and air, which is released into our body, and we need the beneficial microbes in the gut to actually allow our bodies to accept that. They facilitate things like digestion. They produce the secretions that forms the nutrients, the brain neurotransmitters. There's something like 30 brain neurotransmitters. They help with hormones. They raise the enzyme activity. They boost our immunity. They reduce inflammation. They improve gut health and also lining repairs. And microbes can also help us to eliminate the heavy metals and the toxic chemicals. And that is why the gut is actually referred to as the second brain. Now, this is connected by the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is very important because it's almost like the telephone line between the gut and the brain. And isn't it interesting that we actually have 80% of the gut communicating most of the messages to the brain, and with the brain we only have about 20 messages going back down to the stomach. So in most cases what we need to do is to understand that the messages that our gut is sending to the brain is essentially what the microbes are doing for us. So if we were to take out all the microbes and pack them next to us as a grown adult person, you're probably looking at about 20 kilograms. Or it can actually coat the whole surface of a soccer field. So that is how many microbes is actually used in our bodies. And it's the good microbes that we live in synergy with. The imbalances come when we actually expose to all of the bad bacteria and all of the bad microbes. And where the balance is then going out of whack is where we start feeling certain symptoms. So it's very important for us then to make sure that the changes that we implement is based in fixing the gut, fixing the microbes that's actually helping our guts in order to start regenerating, to start healing, to start feeling better, to start absorbing the nutrients, to start utilizing what we're actually giving into our systems. I'm going through this very fast because I know we're on a little bit of a time schedule. So we need in our, you can see from the, me and finger trouble, sorry guys, the tight junctions is kind of like a zip file or a zipper. And our guts are healthy as long as those tight junctions are nicely connected, because we can see all the exposures that we have, microorganisms, it's gluten, it's sugar, it's trans fats, it's all of those things that Dr. mentioned a little bit earlier. Now, if there is any break in that very protective layer, that's where these things start leaking through and land in our bloodstream. And that's where the leaky gut aspect actually comes from. So in live blood screening, we very often are able to see what is actually going on in the blood. And it will also then tell us what is the immune response it will show us the actual immune response in the blood. And it tells us also then what the immune response is reacting to and where are we reaching. So nutrient malabsorption, autoimmunity, food intolerances, blood-brain barrier that's breached, and systemic inflammation, which is all the things that you have mentioned before. Now, if we are very keen on understanding these processes, that is what we work with. We work with these type of things on a daily basis where we actually help people to start understanding, so assessing and advising of what is the path forward. If we look at all of the toxins that you've mentioned and we look at the consumption of food, people are completely into fast lifestyles, and we understand that. But isn't it time that we start also saying, hang on a minute, I need to start eating real food. If it comes in a package and there's a label on it, it's not real food anymore. It's been altered. It's been added to. It's been changed. It's been structurally altered to a fact that we have to feed billions and billions of people on the planet. But if each of us, and that is projects that we're starting in the schools of the area, where we actually start putting together some growing groups, where we start getting family members or school families, if each person starts growing 5 little items, and there is a group of 5 families that participate in that project, then everybody can start sharing. But the main thing is also we start teaching our children where food comes from. They think food comes from packages in the shop. So go back to basics, go back to real food, because that's where the nutrients lie. And yes, we have to wash vegetables. And yes, we have to make sure. But if you grow your own stuff, there's some really good natural pesticides, if you want to call it that you can utilize in your home that will not affect you or your animals or the food that you're growing. Little things like what is that windowsill? Sprouting. Many different sprouts. There's more nutritional value in sprouts than what there are in some of the vegetables. And all you need to do is just trim the beard of different sprouts and pour it over the food. Because that nutritional value will get us very far, and hopefully one day, if there's some doomsday happening, I've got enough sprouts in my windowsill that I can actually feed my family and my animals for that matter. So there's so many different ways that we can actually start looking after our health without making it all that complicated. And knowing is the power that we need, because it is the lack of knowledge that puts us in this position. It's the belief in what is out there and what is available to us, and thinking, well, if millions and billions of people are eating this type of food, what makes it wrong? It is the effect. It is the fact that we then have to start taking all sorts of medications. It is the fact that we are not feeling well, that we're not energetic, that we're not sleeping. So those are the changes that we really need to start making in order to get our health care in our own hands, because this is all about us taking that responsibility and saying, okay, I want to get better. And I know that pills aren't going to do that for me, so I need to look at the holistic picture. That is the field that we're working in. So working holistically means if we want to take care of the body, we have to take care of the mind, the spirit, and the soul. So it's a holistic approach to healing that makes it really effective in the end. So I'm going to hand over to my colleague Plaxi to talk about just the detoxification processes, and hopefully that will be, we will carry on all the rest of the things.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you very much for choosing to spend the time with us, sharing about health. And anyway, thank you to Dr. Fandameve for bringing, health and information to the community around the hospital. That is really special, and I think that is the way forward in terms of where health is going. Okay, detoxification. I'm sure all of us have heard about detoxification. It could be a party, invariably there's somebody who is detoxing. But before I go into this, what I would like to say, and it's a take home, is that although what we can do to detoxify our bodies is simple, the detoxification process itself is a complicated process. Okay, it's got 3 phases. It needs a lot of what we call core factors, but those are just basically nutrients that come in food and can come in supplementation. So what I'm trying to say is water and fasting is not an option when it comes to detoxifying. And what happens is detoxification, because it's a 3-phase process. What can happen is you can do a juice fast or a water fast and you feel great, but that's very short-lived. So I always give my clients this sort of metaphor that if you are a woman and in the kitchen and you clean your kitchen and you put all the rubbish in the bin, you feel great. The kitchen is ready. But what happens if that bin stays there and nobody takes it out? We get into phase 2. You are in trouble because it's gonna stink. Okay. Then you take it out and you put it outside. Okay. So phase 2 is done. But then the municipal man doesn't come at all. What happens? You are in trouble. So basically that is what I would like you to take home. So there, I spent a lot of time looking at there. I don't know if anybody managed to identify which guy needs a detoxification there. Who is quick enough to do that? Okay. Okay. So basically what we do is we use what we call a detoxification questionnaire. We didn't design this. This comes from the Institute of Functional Medicine, which is based in the States, but we do also have a functional medicine academy here in South Africa. So that's the form that we use. You give it to the patient or the client, and they fill it in themselves, they score themselves. So the higher you score here, unlike in maths, the higher you score on this form, the more likely that your detoxification pathways are really suffering and they need help. Okay, so that's how, apart from, just other symptoms that the patient will present and say, I've got fatigue, I've got headache, I've got migraine. That's what we use. Okay, that already Dr. Vandameve has covered a lot of that. Okay, maybe the one that I might just want to touch on is toiletries, or rather cosmetics. He did mention that already, but I just want you to just to bring the message home. Just don't even consider anywhere below the neck. A woman's sort of routine in the morning, from here just up. The shampoo, the conditioner, the face wash, the toner, the scrubber, the moisturizer, the neck cream, the sunscreen. Okay, you have exposed yourself just here. You've exposed yourself to about 40 or more toxins, and what basically that means is that you are burdening your detoxification pathways. And actually, when you're not detoxing well, so think of it as cleansing, then it means that actually ultimately you are affecting your brain, because you are bringing all these toxins into your body and you're not being able to really cleanse them out of the body. Okay, so this is like a sheep in wolf's clothing. I mean, think of the smell of bread. What smells better than freshly baked bread? So it's very difficult to reconcile, to think that something like bread can, bread can actually cause you to have brain symptoms. Okay. The problem with bread, and we've all seen this, and people want to argue, want to justify. Some say, oh, it's not the gluten. Some say, it's the glyphosate in the bread and what have you. But basically, what has happened is that one of the things that has happened is the wheat that we use to make bread today is very different from the wheat that was there a long time ago. I mean, they say actually the first wheat had maybe 14 chromosomes. I don't remember the number, but the one we're using today has got about 40 chromosomes. So we're not talking about the same animal. So what we also do is, if anybody wants this chart, you can email us. We've got a more comprehensive sort of what we call an elimination food list, where it will cover almost more than 100 foods. It will show you that if you want to sort of unburden your detoxification pathways, you can just look at this chart. It will tell you what foods to include and what foods to exclude in your diet. Okay. Okay, so you can see that this is just a nice sort of visual to just show you that at the center, think of a movie, this is the star of the movie, the liver. But that doesn't mean that those are not embodied. So toxins come into the body through the lungs. If we smoke, if we stay in a place where the farmers are spraying a lot of pesticides, and then the skin the skin is actually, the biggest organ in the body. And what we say in functional medicine is that the skin is actually the spokesperson for your gut. And if you don't have gut health, you don't have brain health. So there's nothing like, this is why you find that even teenagers, the one teenager will get a lot of pimples and the other one doesn't. Why? Because the one has got a healthy gut, the one doesn't have. So anything on your skin, whether it's eczema, whether it's a pimple, it's really telling you something about your gut. Okay, and then obviously the gut itself, when we swallow foods, that's why we've got hydrochloric acid in the stomach. It is really hydrochloric acid that we sort of in high school we use in the laboratory. It is hydrochloric acid for a reason, because it needs to kill the pathogens that come with the food that we eat. And this is one of the biggest problems that some of the tablets that we get, the anti-acid, or what called the PPIs or the proton pump inhibitors, they're actually taking away our hydrochloric acid. So we cannot kill the pathogens that comes with the food. So that is actually very important. Maybe that's a question you can address with your doctor and say, so if I'm taking this, don't I need my hydrochloric acid? So on the other side, here it shows you again where those toxins come in, that's where they also exit. And here at the bottom, it's showing you where we store the toxins. Okay, so the more fat cells we are, the more we are more likely to carry more toxins. So there's different types. So we've got fat-soluble toxins, and we've got water-soluble toxins. And at the bottom here, it's showing you all these things that we ignore. And the body is actually very smart. It's got alarm systems. It tells us, the rashes, the fatigue, the mood issues that we ignore, and we laugh and say, I'm screaming at my children. Why are you screaming at your children? It's because you can't help it, because something is happening between your gut and your brain. Okay. So again, I'm just showing you. So here, I've got no intention of giving anybody a physiology class. It's just to show you, can you see this whole list here? Can you see? This all comes in the food. Of course, it can come in supplementation form, but this comes in food. Just to show you that this is what your body, your liver needs to do detoxification. And some of these things, like the folic acid and it's why our parents always said, eat your spinach, eat your broccoli, all those things. Okay, showing you. So this is phase 1, okay, and this is phase 2, and this is phase 3. And I think there is another. Okay, so what's very important, remember we spoke about the kitchen and the bin and taking out the bin. Can you see it's very important to sort of balance detoxification. So it's almost like it's a factory, and the first stage in the factory, something is produced, and then it goes to the second stage until we find the final product. So think about it, if we don't balance those phases, there's going to be a problem. If we upregulate the one phase and the other phase is not is not regulated, we run into problems. So in phase 1, okay, that's where we form these things. I don't know what I can say, call them in lay terms, but all of us have heard about antioxidants, right? We all have heard about it. So this is what happens in phase 1. We form these things that are called free radicals. And that's when we take antioxidants, what we're actually trying to do is to try and sort of take away these. Okay, so because the damage here at the bottom, it says it damages DNA, but what that means, it causes disease, it causes cancer, it can cause Alzheimer's, it can cause all those things. So what's very important is we need nutrients for this phase, nutrients for that phase, okay? And in this phase, this is where we make these things innate, so in other words, they are no longer reactive, and they are safe for the body to excrete them. Okay, so now I'm going to hand over back to my colleague Alina, who is going to tell you about a very exciting fluid that you can use for detoxification.
Okay, that exciting fluid. Water. Now, water can be water. Very important is how many of you have filters in your homes? Okay, how many of you are shopping for water from a shop that actually has proper filters? Our tap water is just not even my animals get tap water in my house, and it's simply because Water is so important. 70% of our bodies consist of water. Now we can actually look at all the composition of that 70% and how it's divided into the body. And those are all of the aspects that the body actually needs water for. So it's a catalyst for every single function and organ in our body systems. Mostly our brains, because it is almost 80% water. Yeah. So make sure that water is filtrated. Doctor did mention about putting filters even on our shower taps and even on the baths, because that toxin burden that we carry are very, very, very harmful. So there's a way that we can drink water in a functional way. Now, first thing in the morning, once you've gotten up and you've gone to the bathroom, get to your toothbrush, your basin, so that you can get your mouth clean. Now, natural toothpaste is actually quite easy. You take coconut oil, you take bicarb, and then there's many essential oils out there that is actually for consumption. So pick the one you like. So if peppermint or minty type of flavors is not what you want, there's plenty of other essential oils. So the recipe is for 8 tablespoons of coconut oil, 8 teaspoons of bicarb, and as much of the essential oil as you want in there for flavor. So yes, it's not a toothpaste, but it cleans your mouth a lot better than what actual toothpastes do, because you will end up doing a lot of swishing. So it does get into the cavities. It actually does start taking out all of the toxins. And please don't spit it back into your basin. Rather dispose of it in the bathroom toilet or into the bathroom bin in a tissue paper, because it is so full of bacteria that if you do it in the basin, apart from the oil that will clog it eventually, it might just start growing all of those horrible bacteria coming out of there. So yes, there's many of, and then drinking that first 2 glasses of water first thing in the morning. Remember, when we sleep, our bodies are actually doing its repairs and maintenance, if you want to call it that. And even when we wake up in the morning, we're very dehydrated. So we need to actually get that rehydration happening. And also that first 2 glasses of water is essential to kickstart the gut. So people that suffer with constipation and with irregular bowel movements, it is because of the lack of water in their colon systems. Often we see with very toxic bowel syndrome is that the toxins that is in the colon is sometimes the only water available to the body to utilize for that cleansing purposes when we're sleeping, that repairs and maintenance. So that lands into that circulation system, and it really, really actually makes us even more toxic than what we are. The glass of water before a meal. Now, you know, there's different schools of thought on that. Some say drink a half an hour before. I've been lugging my water down before meals, and just as I get out of bed, my 500 ml water is there. So once my mouth is clean, I'm lugging my water down. I'm alive to tell the tale. So drink water as it fits you, but just try and drink it in a functional way so that your body has access to it and is able to actually utilize it at the time that you drink it for the purpose that you're drinking it. So drinking water before the meal, we're actually allowing the water in the upper stomach chamber. Chew your food longer, make your bites smaller. The more enzymes from the saliva you can bind to the food, by the time it lands in the stomach and there's enough water there, and the hydrochloric acid and the pepsin is released, then the washing machine can start churning. That's where we get the extraction of nutrients. So by the time it goes to the next phase, which is in the duodenum where it lies in chyme, where the body starts extracting all of the nutrients, that is the importance of water when it comes to eat cycles. The others is to drink water before you bath, so that you actually helps with detoxification. And then they also say drink a glass of water before you go to bed, and a lot of people do that because they have to drink their pills before they go to bed. But drink it for a reason. Drink it to be functionally available for your body to use, and be careful of drinking water while you sleep during the night. If you're thirsty waking up in the middle of the night, there's something wrong in the picture. That means during the day you did not hydrate your body sufficiently. And there's a couple of other things obviously also, like sugar problems, etc. But just be mindful of when you are drinking your water, especially during the course of the night, that think of those toxins, because if you haven't cleaned your mouth and you drink or eat something, you're swallowing all the toxins back. So your poor body is doing all this work in trying to detoxify while you're sleeping and cleaning itself out. A lot of it sits in the mouth, and then we just swallow it all back. So the whole process starts again. Okay, so greens. It's not just broccoli and green apples. It's all the greens. The more leafy they are, the more green they are, the better they are. So juicing, great alternative if you don't like eating. But it's also the vitamin K. Vitamin K is so important in our actual greens because it helps with the blood clotting, and it's very important for our stomach. These are some of the foods that we want to really focus on when we want to do detoxification. So again, greens, lots of them. And Plaxi and I were giggling about arugula today because this is American, and it's kind of just very simple. Rocket is arugula, so I learned something today. So lemons, guys, lemons and limes, they're very alkaline. So if we were to test them, yes, they will taste extremely acidic. When we consume them, they turn into an alkaline ash. If we combine it with a bicarb powder, we have a really good process of starting to get our toxins eliminated and also the acid-alkaline balance happening. Now, I'm going to give it back to Plaxi so she can quickly just talk about supplementation and what you need to work with. And then we're going to finish off with our other colleague Sanette, that's going to do breathing, because that's our other detoxification process that we're going to finish. Thank you.
Okay, so supplementation has got a place. We obviously know why, because not all of us have got the time. I mean, it's actually very difficult to reconcile. You have to work to get the money to buy the vegetables, but you also need time to make. So that's where supplementation comes in. I mean, obviously people will say, yeah, don't take supplements, eat your food, but I always say, please tell me, where is your farm, where you grow your own food and where you don't spray it in. So this is just a list of some of the herbs that are very important in detoxification. So they come in different forms, and what's very important is that you know, the natural supplementation industry is not regulated like the pharmaceutical industry. So it's very important to find a practitioner that you trust, who can just guide you and help you. It's, I mean, you can go to clinics or a Discam and pick. Yes, you know, you can hit in the dark and pick up the right thing, but I really think that sometimes either read up or, you know, find somebody that can just help you with that choice. Okay, and this is some of the supplements that you know, that are also important for detoxification, helping both the phase 1 and phase 2. And most of these things are found in the food that we eat. Okay, so basically that's it on supplements. Oh, sorry, I didn't introduce. I'm sort of just thinking of time. So this is my colleague Sanette. She's just going to show us some, you know, some important breathing techniques, because as you know, breathing helps us detoxify the body. It's very important. Most of us, we do what we call apical breathing. We never get to really aerate all the lungs and get to the very bottom, what we call the claustrophrenic angles of the lungs, and you know, we are breathing in a healthy way. Okay, to Sanette.
Hi, thank you. I briefly read something for us on breathing. So we can live without food for up to 2 months. We can live without water for up to 2 weeks. We can live only a few minutes without air. So the nutrition provided by air through breathing to the body is even more vital to health and longevity than that which is provided by food and water through digestion. There's mainly 2 functional breathing types: cleansing and energizing. Cleansing detoxifies and stresses on exhalation, where energizing breath collects and stores vital energy, and mostly is focused on inhalation. So besides assimilating and circulating of vital energy, deep breathing actually massages the internal organs and our glands. It purges the cells and the tissue of toxins, which is what we've been focusing on mainly today. Purifies the bloodstream, and it stimulates even hormone secretion. It greatly enhances our resistance and our immunity. So just with those few points, I think it's clear that breath is such a key element to our health and vitality. And if we can use just the natural, automatic function of breathing as also a form of detoxification, we could immediately see the benefits from that. So I'd like to share with you a very, very simple exercise which is called the bellows. It's a classic detoxifying exercise, and it's very easy. You can also join in with it. I'm not going to do a full minute. You can do 2 to 3 minutes of this breathing exercise anytime during the day, anytime at night. When you feel physically exhausted, when you feel mentally strained or emotionally strained, this breathing exercise immediately will bring back settle calmness in, and it will just revitalize your body. So it's been designed to purify the lungs and the bloodstream. It refreshes the brain by irrigating it with oxygenated blood. The upward movement through this exercise creates a contraction, a gentle contraction and expansion within the brain, which is highly beneficial in cerebral massage. So, you know, even based just again on today's topic, such a fundamental exercise, and actually so easy to do, and it costs nothing, and you can do it anywhere, anytime. So when we do this breathing exercise, think of a bellows, you know, slowly, I mean, we all know the bellows. So the thing we're going to focus on is exhalation, because of the detoxifying effect. We're focusing on the abdomen, and which often we tend to be breathing, as Plaxi says, more in terms of our lungs, but breath actually goes into the abdomen. And so I'm going to just give you a brief explanation of what we're going to do, and then we can maybe just do a few of these and see the effect that they have. So we start by expelling all the air from the lungs, and this is something that's a key as well. Often people say take a deep breath, but actually good breathing starts with exhaling. So we're going to use our abdominal muscles to squeeze all the air out of our lungs as much as we can, like really, really squeeze all the air out, which then will create a natural vacuum. And when we allow, the air will literally just flow into the body. But try and bring the air into the bottom, the abdomen. We're also only going to fill halfway, so it's not a full deep in-breath. It's literally just let that vacuum fill naturally, and then push it out again with the abdomen. So like a bellows. So we're going to do just a few of those. Our aim is to do about 20 breaths in a minute. So in future, if you try and do this exercise, that's what it is. So we don't have to do a full minute, but just to get an idea as to how that feels. So let's all just sit gently and contract the abdomen and squeeze out all the air that you can. Squeeze those abdomen, squeeze, 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 squeeze. Allow the air to fill into abdomen and squeeze out. So that's the bellows. A very basic, fantastic, easy to do any time of the day, detoxing breath exercise. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's really amazing just to see how we can all flow together with the same topic but from different angles. And I really want to invite all of you that we're going to leave some details how to contact this team, but we're going to really encourage you to make the time, to maybe make an appointment with them like you would anywhere else, and maybe just see what comes up. And I really think you'll be really refreshed by looking at yourself in that way. So I think all for today. Big topic, a massive topic, but maybe start somewhere with your life. Okay, so thank you very much for coming. And, so our next speech or talk will be next year, only end of January. Then we'll do 3 months of what you eat. So that's a big topic. Okay? So we'll do that. So we'll do all the things that we're going to ask Krista, my co-worker and this labourer and this to speak again for us. Also, in January again. And thank you very much for helping us with us. Thanks. Bye-bye.